Hey, how's it going? I hope that everyone's safe, everyone's doing well. Obviously, given the situations, I haven't been able to go out and fly that much. I've been actually stuck at my apartment for about almost 2 months now. And yeah, so I felt like I wanted to share with you something else, something that I've been meaning to share for a long time, because I see a lot of questions from a lot of people coming, and I kind of wanted to approach it, which is how to become a professional FPV pilot. And I'm going to speak mostly about the cinematic, not the racing aspect or just the YouTube side of things, just going to shoots and stuff like that. Over the last year to year and a half, cinematic FPV has been everywhere. It's been in music videos, commercials, TV series, travel videos, live events, and even cinema. It's been in so many places. You might be considering it as a potential career, whether you started flying yet or not. And I've been doing this for about a year and a half. I'm a professional FPV pilot, and I go on shoots all across the world. I've worked for some of my favorite brands like GoPro, Red Bull, and a lot of like different car brands also, like Mercedes. And yeah, I've been all over the world right now to like shoot for a lot of different things on different types of budgets and different types of artists as well. I've been doing music videos, and before that I had 6 years of experience as a creative in advertising, so I thought I could share with you some of what I've learned along the journey. We're going to be looking at 4 different things today. We're going to be looking at before you start, what you should think about, what you should consider. Then on set, what's the attitude that you need to have? Is there some kind of mindset that you need to be on? The third part is going to be the art of the deal. So we're going to be looking at money. We're going to be looking at how to negotiate things and the kind of day rate that you can potentially ask as an FPV pilot. And the last but not least part is what it's like in the day-to-day life of an FPV pilot that's doing this for a living. All right, let's go. So before you start it as your job, the first thing that you need to consider is why you want it to become a career. And there's no easy answer for that, because there's a lot of illusions about this type of job. If you're already flying, you might think that you're gonna have all the time in the world to just fly all the time and think about it, which is not necessarily true. We will see it later. And if you're not flying already and you see it as a potential cash grab, you're just gonna be frustrated, because it takes at least 1 year of just flying as a hobby before you can even get started at all. So that's the very first thing. The second thing that you're going to be looking at is how. So my biggest advice for people is don't quit your day job just to start a professional FPV career. You need to do it gradually. You need to do it at the same time as you have a clear revenue, because in the beginning you're probably not going to get gigs every day, and if you do it that way, you're gonna end up broke very fast. So my best advice for that is to start doing it over the weekend, or like take some days off to actually just start doing this type of work. Another part that you need to look at wherever you are in the world, there's some structure that you need to have. Probably you're gonna need to have a self-employed business. You're gonna need to have some type of license, some type of drone license. Then you're gonna need to prepare some gear. As you can see, I've got a bunch of gear behind me, and believe it or not, everything is being used at pretty much all times. So this is something that you really want to have, is maybe 2 or 3 rigs that are always ready just to fly for those types of jobs. So it's a little bit of an investment at first. You need 3 cameras, probably 3 GoPros, and then you need 3 drones, I'd say, at least. Personally, when I go on the gig, I bring at least 2 Cinewhoops, those ones over there, and then 3 5-inch drones at least. So this is something that you need to really consider. So you've got everything in order. You've got your license, you've got your gear ready. What now? What is going to happen now is that you're going to have to find clients, and there are different ways to find clients. The first one is just to do some cold calls, which is that you send emails to people and you just try to contact them on social media, or like different people that you may know around you in your personal network. So that's one way of doing things. It's usually a lot of effort, and it's not necessarily going to bring you a lot of reward, because people don't know you, so they need to see some kind of thing that you can do before that. So my best advice for this is to work really hard on personal projects, stuff that matters to you, stuff that you can have full creative vision and full creative impact on what you're doing. And that's the best way to me to getting jobs, is just putting out some great content out there. If you do that, people are going to call you. That's just the rule. Another thing that you can look into is partnering up with a more classic drone company that's flying usually Inspires or Mavics, or like the Matrice, for example, like big drones. And they might be right now looking for FPV pilots, and they'll be very happy to partner up with you and send clients your way, as long as they can use it as their footage and manage the whole project themselves. It's an addition to their offer, and it's just a great way to work with different companies and get new clients. I've been doing it for about a year now, and it's been helpful. So you got your first client, everything is set for you to go in a few days to a location. What are you going to do now? The first thing that you want to do, and that I've found super helpful, is to have a go bag. I have a bag that's just right here. It's here. And in this bag, I have everything I might need on set, which means I have some spare parts, I have a charger. That's not the charger that I use usually. I've got a spare radio, spare goggles, spare everything. And that way, when I'm on set, I can just, when I have to go on a gig, I can just take this bag and know that I've got everything I'm gonna need. This bag, I never unpack it. It's always ready to go that way. So that's a really helpful thing that you need to do to help out with your anxiety of going. You prepare really well. You bring at least enough to fix a whole quad, or to build a new quad from scratch. You need to have a soldering iron. You need to have pretty much everything. And to me, what has been working as well is to have a little ritual before I go. So I pack my bag in a certain way. I pack it at a certain time. Things like this that help me get in the mood to kind of just go there. Then you take the plane. There's lots of videos of taking the plane with FPV drones. Basically, as long as you've got less than 20 batteries and that you put them in a little pouch for each one, it's gonna be fun. And then you arrive on set. What do you do on set when you arrive for a job? The first thing that you want to do is to identify everyone that is going to be working with you. So you need to know who the director is, who the producer is, who's the director of photography, who are the extras, the talents, the riggers, everyone, like the light guys, everyone. You need to know what they're doing, because it might come in handy at some point. The other thing that the second thing that you do once you know that who's everyone is to speak to your director. You take some time before the shoot. Usually you arrive a day earlier, so you have time to speak to him or her, and you can just discuss exactly what they want. I usually go and try to understand the film prior to coming on set and that way I can also kind of offer different types of shots, or like plan a little bit our day on the next day, for example. and you really need to understand what they want, what they're looking for to bring it to life. Basically, it's your job. Once you've done that, you need to understand something, which is to me 30% of the job, which is that you have to understand the hierarchy of the set. So each team, and depending on the size of the team, is going to be different. But the main thing you need to know is that the director is your boss, and whatever he says, you do it as long as it's safe, obviously. But you're here to please one person, or maybe two, which are the director and the director of photography. These two people are the ones that need to be happy. So communicate well with them. If they ask you for something, if it's safe, you have to do it. Even if you don't agree with the way the shot is going to look or something, you do it. And if you disagree, you can offer to do something else after. But first you have to cater their needs, because they're the ones that brought you here. They're the reasons why you can make a living out of this. So you have to make sure to make them happy. One of the first things that's very important is the attitude. You have to be perfect in terms of attitude. That's one of the most important things, because people don't work with assholes. They just like to work with people that are nice. And no matter how talented you are, if you're a piece of shit, you're not going to get that many jobs. So the first thing in the attitude is that you have to be always ready. Your gear has to be set somewhere with a battery on top, and everything that can be done in 30 seconds and up you're in the air, that's it. Because things happen really fast on sets, and you don't want to be the guy that's making everyone wait for 10 minutes because you forgot your battery, or that you don't know why your quad is not starting. So first thing you do, you arrive on set, you test everything, you do a little hover test, you see if you can see in the video, you can kind of have everything set, even spare all that, so that you know that you won't take some time when you get finally asked to do something. Also, you have to communicate really well. That means that you go into the toilet, you let someone know about it. Not the director, because he's busy doing something, but probably like one of the producers or one of the assistants. You go anywhere for more than 30 seconds and you out of sight, you let someone know about it. Simple as that. You just communicate to people. You don't be afraid to ask when you're going to be able to shoot. Like, I mean, most of the times I go to an assistant and ask, like, okay, so we're doing this shot right now, how many shots do we have before mine, so that I know that I've got a certain time to prepare to do whatever I have to do if I need to do some tests or something. One of the other things is try to make everything easier for everyone. That means that if you have to carry a heavy table at some point, or just help someone out so that it goes faster, you do it. Like if you have to clean up something that's not your mess, you do it, because it helps everyone. Everyone's here for the same job, and the more time you have, the more you might have time to get some cool things going for that shoot. There's some mistakes that you shouldn't do as well, like for example, not being able to say no is a big one, because sometimes you'll get asked something that's very dangerous, impossible, or that you could lose signal and kind of crash somewhere if you do it. And no matter how talented you are, sometimes physics and radio waves don't go through concrete buildings. So you need to be able to say no, or to put yourself in the best situation to do something. Make sure to stay in your comfort zone as well. That's something super important. On set, if the director asks you to do something and you're not feeling confident that you can pull it off first try, just let him know or don't do it. You should always be at about 80% of your abilities, because if you go at 100%, there's a chance of missing out, or 110, like you're gonna crash. And you have to go through a whole shoot, not just nail 3 shots and then mess it up. So you really have to kind of let people know about this. and make sure to always kind of stay in that comfort zone. But once you've said it, you have to commit to what you said. If you said yes to something, you do it. That's it. You can't just back down. You have to have a very clear reason for why you're doing that. Another mistake is just letting yourself get distracted, because I mean, you're waiting for like 5 hours or 10 hours, and then suddenly you have to go. So you have to keep your game going all the time and be very focused on what you're doing. The last mistake that's happened to me in the past is to just get angry. And that can happen for various reasons. For a crash because you were not able to say no, for example. That's what happened to me once, and I'll never forget about it. I still feel bad about it even today. But yeah, like, get angry for something is just not an option. You flying, and it's a very extreme condition mentally, because I mean, you know that at the end of the flight you may be shaking, you've got all this adrenaline pumping, but you shouldn't let it just get you pissed off or anything. You just have to stay cool at all times and just keep it easy and try to just forget about everything. So yeah, never get frustrated. Sometimes it can be a bit frustrating. You feel like you're not being listened creatively, or you feel like you could do so much more because there's not a lot of time for FPV, because there's all these cameras that pass before you. But just remember that you came here to do one job, and that is to please your director and to get the shots that he wants, not the shots that you want. But if you want to get specific shots, feel free to let them know, and to be like, once you've gotten everything they want, you can be like, hey, you know, I think I could shoot it that way or that way. Maybe it would be interesting. And sometimes they'll agree, sometimes they'll say, no, we don't have time or something, but that is part of the job. So yeah, but I mean, the job is going to take you to so many cool different locations, so many situations that you never imagined, really. I mean, I've had situations where I met some of like the biggest heroes or very talented people that I've been loving for a long time, and it's really cool. It's so empowering to see other talented people and to be able to work with them in a mutual respect. That's the dream. Moving on to a different part of the job, which is the art of the deal. So in that part, we're going to speak about money and negotiation. It's a subject that some people are not comfortable with, but I think it's really important to mention, because it may be your first job as a freelancer, or it may be something that is completely different from what you used to do before. So there's going to be a lot of different things to adjust and to kind of understand, so that you can really make the best out of it and not get scammed or taken advantage of. So the first thing that you're gonna try to think about is, how much can I ask for? What is my price? So there are different ways of determining what a good price for an FPV pilot is. The first one is to really think about what other pilots are charging. You can ask, if you know some professional pilots, you can ask them how much they charge, if they're happy with what they charge as well. You can just be very transparent about it, and usually most people will say yes if they know you. Just don't ask them. I mean, just don't come to my Instagram and ask me if I don't know you, or like Mr. Steels, or like, oh my god, or Johnny. Don't just go and like ask professional pilots just like that if you don't know them. But if you know them, or if you interacted with them, you can try and ask what they charge. So then you have to think about something, which is that you're not going to be able to work every day. So the way we usually charge is called a day rate, because we just charge for a whole day, and that's the time that we charge for. That day rate can vary based on the project, but Usually it's either a day rate or half day rate if it's something that you can do local and you know that it doesn't take too much time. Your half day rate is never the price of a day rate divided by 2. It's actually more about 70%, because when you think about it, if you take a job for half a day, it's very unlikely that you're going to get another half day job on that day. So you can't just accept something half price just because they're taking you for half a day. You need to go at least 70 to 80% of what you usually take in. I wouldn't recommend doing anything hourly, because it's never going to take 2 hours to do a job. It's always going to take you at least half a day. And then you have travel days, which are days that you travel for a specific job that are used for that specific job, but that are days that you don't fly, you're just traveling, for example. So these days are usually half the day rate. So I've been happy charging that. Some people charge 40%, some people charge 60%. Depends on what you want to do, but I think half is fair. Same for the scout days. I usually charge half on the scout days. I'm not going to give you any feature of what you should charge or what you shouldn't, but because it's internet, so it's forever, and also it might change in the future, and I don't want people to look at this in 2 years and think, okay, I should charge this when the prices went up or maybe down, and then like kind of have an unpleasant experience about that. Another way for you to know what kind of money you can charge is to look at the prices that Inspire, like DJI Inspire pilots charge, and from that you can kind of just match that price, because today we know that it's more complicated than flying a Mavic, for example, and it's rarer than people flying Inspires. So I think a good benchmark is kind of the Inspire pilots, and then as your notoriety goes up, you can increase your pricing and kind of look at, based on the different jobs that you've done, the references, you can increase that price. Another thing is that if you go abroad, you don't want to be poaching anyone that's trying to make a living locally. So if you're going, let's say if I'm going to the US, I might ask what they charge over there to know that I'm not undercharging and I'm not taking cheaper than a local person is gonna take, because otherwise it creates a problem. If it's usually cheaper in the local country, I'll keep my usual day rate, and then if it's more expensive, I'll go and match that day rate for someone. And one thing to remember is that you have to remember that this price you're asking for, you're going to be taxed and re-taxed on that price. So this is not money that goes straight to your pocket. Sometimes people are like, sweet, like this is like thousands of euros or dollars coming straight to my pocket, but this is not. It's actually going to be taxed a lot, so you need to take that into consideration. And the last thing that I want to speak about is people that just take super cheap prices. Some of them it's because they don't necessarily know what they can charge, and for others it's a very deliberate approach to getting jobs, and that is just not a healthy way to keep everything going, because it's going to be a race towards the bottom if you do that. I mean, let's say some pilot that doesn't have a lot of like network and experience charges something very low because he wants to get the job. A pilot that earns a lot more money and wants the job as well is more easily going to be able to just like match the price and be like, yeah, fuck off, like you want to charge this, I'll do that. And then that person's not going to get the job for sure, because I mean, if you get two people with different experience and one that's just saying, okay, like I'll just match it, it's not healthy, because it's going to progressively bring everyone down. So the best way we can face like competition between each other, and the best way we can actually make this something that is positive for everyone and that people can actually make a living out of, is to stay together and to kind of agree that we need to charge a certain amount, and to try to have all like kind of a similar price, if you will, based on experience, of course. But like, yeah, that's one of the very important things that you need to know about. Now on to how to negotiate with production companies. That is a big subject. There's a lot of sharks in in production companies. I'm not saying that everyone's bad or anything, but they have a lot of experience in negotiating with talent, and you don't, because you're starting. So you have to know a few things to make sure that they don't take advantage of you. The first thing is that if someone is calling you for something, then that means that they probably need FPV. You need to determine whether or not they need FPV in that shoot very fast, and whether or not there are other pilots, or whether you've been contacted because they like something that you've done and they're very specific about it. And that's going to be your bargaining chips onto how much you can actually like work on something. So that's one thing. The other thing is, what are you bringing that is unique to the table? Is there something that you can do that no one else can do? Or is there something that you're specifically talented at that they're looking at? And usually production companies are going to try to like get your prices to go down. They're going to say, no, you know, like, it's a great opportunity, you can get exposure through that and whatnot. Just, to me, my personal advice in terms of exposure, don't give in to it at all. Exposure doesn't come through what you've done with X or Y. It comes from the great work that you can do yourself, and like, that's where you actually gonna get real exposure. Because otherwise, it's just gonna, I mean, it's just a nice piece, but it never works in my experience. So yeah, I would advise just not to lower your price for exposure. You can lower the prices if you think this is a great opportunity, if you think there's something interesting about that business, but don't lower the price to a point that is just ridiculous, like 50% or something. You can go 20% maybe if you're very interested by this job, and it's not that often that you can do that. Feel free to be kind of hard on production companies. They're used to it. This is negotiation, and it's only business. You don't have to get pissed off at someone, and if they take something that's not as good, or because it was cheaper or something, their loss. You don't be emotionally tied into any of this. It's just business. And if they've taken a cheap ass pilot that's doing like something stupid, just let them. They won't get great footage from that, and eventually it will be their loss, and they might call you back at the end of the day. Like, don't get bothered by that. But once you've said yes to something, just know that you said yes to it and you can't go back. So if you've agreed to a price, don't show up to the set and be like, oh, I want to renegotiate or something, because it's gonna just piss off everybody. You're not gonna get your raise, and you're not gonna get another job from these guys ever again after that. So there's no point. And sometimes you just have to know to let it go. I mean, I usually always give a fair price in the first email that they ask me for a rate, and if they try to negotiate, I usually just let it go. But yeah, you have to stay firm, give yourself a figure, And if it goes below that figure, you just have to let it go. Sometimes it's not worth it. All right, now moving on to what it's like to be an FPV pilot as a professional level every day. Well, there's some positive and there's some negatives as well. One thing that's positive and a negative at the same time is that your work is your passion. So it's really cool because you get to live out of what you're passionate about, but at the same time, when it becomes your work, does it still remain a hobby and something fun that you like to do? It's not always the case. You get to travel as well, which is another bad and negative aspect of that job, because it means that you're gonna get to amazing places, you're gonna get to places you've never seen before, but that means that you're also gonna be away for a long time, sometimes month. I've been away from my family for some jobs for almost 3 months sometimes, just not coming back to my wife and seeing and being at home. It can get very draining, but at the same time you get to see amazing places, but it's something that you really have to think about. You get to participate in something artistic as well. You get to see a lot of talented people work on a very nice piece of art that is going to come out, and that is pretty awesome. You get to just be your own boss as well. You decide whether or not you want to go on the job. Once you're on the job, you definitely have a boss, don't get me wrong, but before that, you decide whether or not you'll say yes to that job, and that's pretty freaking great. One of the negatives and things to really think about is that everything can stop at once. Like, for example, right now with coronavirus, I'm deeply impacted. I've lost a lot of gigs because of that, and it's something that you have to prepare for. Like, to me, one of the things the ways that I prepared for it was that I set some money aside for rainy days, and that's something that you really need to do. Like, the first benefits that you do, just don't go out and spend it on something stupid. Just keep it as like a rainy day fund, because you're gonna need it at some point. You just don't know when. And that's what happened with the coronavirus. But yeah, you never know what tomorrow is going to be made of. Sometimes you don't know 1 month in advance what's going to happen to you, or 2 weeks. Like, I've gotten calls to go to the other side of the world 5 days prior to actually being there. So it's a life that is very like unpredictable, and you have to come to peace with that, because you just don't know where you're gonna end up every month. It's fun, but it's also it's a bit weird to think about. It's also the same for money. Like, you don't know what you're gonna make every month. After a year or two of experience, you kind of know when you're gonna get big jobs and when you're not gonna get them. But still, like, it's something that can just happen like that. Like, you can have a month with no earnings whatsoever, so that's something to consider. And yeah, like, you just, it's part of all these things that you need to think of. Once again, for me, if you're considering doing it as a job, I wouldn't consider doing FPV, cinematic FPV, as a job before at least 1 year of regular flying, regular content creating, because you need to have a certain experience and know exactly what your machine's going to do and where. And a lot of people are actually saying that you need even more than that, like 2-3 years. For me, I've been flying for 3 years and doing this for 1.5 years, and before that I was just flying, but I was flying 2-3 times a week, and I was training really hard, and at some point I just felt confident that I could do it. But it's something that takes a lot of time before you get to that place, and before you think, yeah, I can go to a job and nail it first try, because that's one of the things as well, is that usually you get 1 or 2 tries to nail a shot. In conclusion, to me, if you are looking into making it a career, don't quit your day job and just go head first into this new adventure. Just try to make it progressively and have always a revenue stream that makes it safe for you to try and build up something over a long period of time, like maybe 6 months to a year before you actually make the big jump. You have to know that you have clients, that this is something reliable. If you are not flying currently and you're thinking about this as a career, so you want to start FPV to literally go and make a career out of it, you have to remember that it should be a hobby first, and then after a year you might be able to start something, but there's always something very uncertain about it, so just keep that in mind. You have to understand the hierarchy of a shoot. You have to be able to take care of the people that you work with, to communicate well. You have to be able to say no and put some money aside for rainy days. But most of all, remember that you need to be having fun. You need to be passionate not only about FPV, but you need to be passionate about filmmaking. You need to be passionate about all aspects of the job. Like, there's so many times where I just sit down and look at the Steadicam guy work, or look at the riggers preparing something, or just having great conversations with them. You need to be passionate about the whole process. Otherwise, it's not going to work, because your passion for FPV is eventually going to fade out, and it's gonna become a job, and it won't work. So be passionate about filmmaking as a whole and have fun. And that is it for that video. I hope that it helped you figure things out, or maybe it helped you in any way, whether you started working or not in FPV. I wish you good luck to every project that you may start, and in the meantime, see you next time. Bye bye.